Today's daf is daf Pei Hey. We're going to begin on daf Pei Dalid towards the bottom. The line starts with Leila Tatif, Tanan Abanan. Tanan Abanan, we learned in a Braisa. Call out Tanayin, based on Gittin. All conditions that are written in a get are going to be puzzle. These are the words of Rebbe. Chacham say, Kol shepaisel apeh, paisel b'chsav. Any qualifications that passel a divorce when it's stated about peh orally by the husband while he has the get, that invalidates when written. And anything that does not invalidate when it's stated orally does not invalidate when it's written. So therefore, using a qualification that she's permitted, that's what the Gemara says. Now, when you use a qualification that's permitted to marry any man except for so-and-so, which invalidates the divorce when stated but it invalidates chutz shepaisel apeh paisel b'chsav. So the apostles both and almanas. However, on almanas she'ein paisel apeh, which is not paisel apeh, and paisel b'chsav. The machlekes applies to that case where the condition was written in the get before, as we know, the essential part was written. The Rebbe Savar, Rebbe holds that because we almanas atul chutz, that we make a decree of almanas atul chutz, and when the Savar they consider almanas atul chutz. But when it comes to after the essentials of Yaakov kosher, everyone's going to agree that it's kosher. Listen, and the Mishnah, the Ktanik Savai. And the Mishnah, which teaches that if he wrote his qualifications in the get and it's puzzle, and we established as referring to a case of chutz, of nas le puzzle, so l'cheda this is not contradicted Braisa. So the Gemara says, either you could say this is talking about the Fnei V'Rabbana, or B'Yisim Lachatev V'Divrei Hakim. Rava says no. Machlekes lachartid, the machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Rebbe, and the Chachomim is with regards to the case where the Tanai is written after the Tatif. The Rebbe Savar, Rebbe holds, because in Atul, the Fnei Tatif, that we issue a decree making the get puzzle due to a case where the condition is written before the Tatif. But Rabbi Sabri and the Chachom hold later Atul, the Fnei Tatif, we don't make the Gzera. The Fnei Tatif, the Reakov puzzle. According to the Chacham. Tani Avua the Rebbe Alvin Kamed Rebzeda. Kosov get al Tanai. If a person wrote a get al Tanai the Reakov puzzle, everyone agrees it's puzzle. Everyone agrees it's puzzle. Don't only disagree about this. Rather, means to say is the Reakov kosher. Everyone will agree that it's kosher, in which case, this is lachativ after the teif. Gemara asks if the Eimar is a puzzle of Rebbe. Why doesn't the Rebbe just say that the Braisa means to say it's puzzle, and everyone agrees, and this is according to Rebbe? So my answer is Tana de Rehakil Asnai. That the Tana taught that everyone agrees, which is a very a conspicuous statement. Kosher, the puzzle mechalafle, although he may confuse the words with puzzle and kosher, as if the but with the phrase everyone agrees that you can't be confused. Therefore, Rav Zira modified the Braisa, which is the way he did. A person gives a wife to get to his wife, and he says to her, "You're going to be permitted to marry any man except your father, my father, your father, to my brother to marry your brother, to serve it or a goy, or anyone whom you cannot legally become mukudeshes to." So the Mishnah says, kosher. It's kosher. I made it tonight. Since these men cannot anyway be mukudeshes, his qualifications basically is meaningless. If he says to her, Ariyat muteres l'chol adam ela almana l'kein gadol. If he says you're going to be permitted to any man except a almana, Ariyat muteres l'chol adam. A person says you are permitted to marry any man, except for when doing so, he violates the following. He says, El Almana L'Kein Gadol, the Isra against an Almana Ta'Kein Gadol, Grusha Chalut L'Kein Hedid, or Grusha Chalut L'Kein Hedid, Amzeres in the Single Yisrael, or Amzeres in the Single Yisrael, Bas Yisrael Mamzel Nas, and the Chobish Yishal Allah Kedushin, After Ba'aveda. So there is Kedushin even Ba'aveda. So in all these cases, puzzle is puzzle. The statement is basically a partial divorce, as the woman is still not permitted to marry any man whom is eligible to Mimu Kadeshus. Now, the Gemara says, Klola Dereisha. The statement of the Klal in the first case of the Mishnah says, anyone to whom she can not legally be Mukadeshus. So the Gemara says, Lasui Shar Chayav Krisis. This comes to include the rest of those which are Mechuyev Krisis for having relations with her, or are not listed explicitly in the Mishnah. And called the Seifa, and the generalization of the last case in the Mishnah, which said anyone whom she can legally become Mekudeshes, that's La'asuye Shar Chayav Elaven, comes to include those Chayav Elaven. Again, Amaynabi Nasinim Mitzri. Although they're Laven from having relations with her due to the Isra of the Mrs. Asay, nevertheless, she can legally become Mekudeshes. The husband says that she's permitted to marry any man, but he says except for being Mekudeshes to so-and-so who was a minor boy at that time. So what's the halacha? Do we say that now, since he's in any event not eligible to get married, as we know a Katan cannot be Mekudesh to a woman, so the husband's qualification does not prohibit his wife to anyone, and the Chayda is a complete casus. Or since he will reach eligible Kedushin, he's going to become an adult eventually, so is the husband's qualifications considered as a prohibiting her to somebody whom Kedushin could apply? So Amar later, Nachman said to him, Tenisu, he learned the solution from the Brisa. Tana miskadeshes b'kedushay aviyah. A minor girl can get divorced from her husband even if she was mekudeshes to him through her father's kedushin. In other words, her father was mekudesh to her husband. So the Gemara asks, Amai, why can't she? But don't we need the idea of Yatzavais, and she departs and she becomes, which that's the whole basis of the comparison of the halachas. So since she is not eligible to receive her own kedushin until she reaches maturity, she's not able to receive the get as well. Rather, since she will eventually become eligible for Havaya Hanami, so here too also we're going to say also the Chalavaya, since the Katan, whom the husband asks the wife for marrying, will reach the age of eligibility for Kiddushin, so L'cheda making such a tanai, the get is not valid. Rabban asks another shayla. The husband says that she's permitted to marry any man except for those who will be born in the future. So what's the halacha? Hashtami Allah isyaldu. Do we say that since in any event they are not yet born, the qualification is void? Or perhaps they're considered usher to her, as they will be born in the future. So later, Nachman said to him, you learn the solution of your shayla in the Mishnah, which states that if the husband says that she is forbidden, if the husband says that she's forbidden to slave her to a guy, so what do you say? The divorce is valid. If it's so that we take on to future situations, then a slave and a guy are likely to convert. Therefore, the husband's isser, the husband asking her for marrying a man which she might be able to marry in the future, which could render the divorce invalid. So we see that we only take the present situation into consideration. So where it says Hanach, those people loudly guri kaimi, those people do not stand before the court ready to convert. It's only a possibility that they will convert, as there's no reason to assume that they will do so. Hani, the Yisrael kaimi, but these people will be born and stand ready to be born. Therefore, the solution cannot be learned from the Mishnah. Now, Rava raised another shayla. If he permits her to marry any man except for her sister's husband, What's the halacha? Hashta mi'alechaz. They should be reason that since in any event she's not yet fit for him, or perhaps she reason that sometimes a woman's sister dies and she is thereby fit to marry her husband. He says, I'm related. Not upset to him. We learned in the Mishnah, in our Mishnah. What did the Mishnah say? That if the husband says that she's forbidden to marry the Eved L'Nokri, so the Eved L'Nokri Nami Eved L'Mizgari, a slave and a guy are also potentially fit to marry her as that are likely to convert. So what do we see? We'll look at the current situation. So the more answers, it says, Geiras L'Shrichi, conversion is very uncommon. Visa Shrichi, however, death is common. Now, if he says to her that you are permitted to any man, chutz mizanusich, except for your znusich, meaning that she may get married to any man, but she may not engage in she may get married to any man, but she may not engage in relations outside a second marriage. If she's still considered ish, what's the halacha? What's the halacha? Should we say with regard to marriage, the halishar, she did not leave anything out of the divorce, and she's permitted to marry any man, or perhaps he left out part of the divorce, the bia. So the fact is that the Mishnah, that only if you render her forbidden to my father, to your father, is not considered as if he left part of the divorce. Or if you rendered her forbidden to engage in znus with another man, it's considered that he left out part of the divorce, and will not take effect. So the Gemara says no. You don't move in this soon. Perhaps the Mishnah is referring to marriage, the over the insa where the father transgresses the Isra and marries her anyway. Therefore, the halacha with regard to znus cannot be learned from here. Rav asked another shaila. If he says to her that she's permitted to any man, chutz mishalei kedarka, except for engaging in relations and shalei kedarka. Should reason that with regards to a typical bia, he did not leave part of the divorce, so the divorce should be valid. Or perhaps it says mishkvi isha, and it's derived that a typical that has the same status, and therefore this is considered a partial divorce, so will not take effect. Yes, another shayla. If he says that to her that she's permitted to marry any man except for the halachas of nullification of your vows. In other words, no man who marries you can nullify her vows other than her ex-husband who retains power to do so. So, do I say B'nisrin Halishayr? Should I say with regards to the ability to enter into marriage, you did not leave out anything from this? Or do I say the pasuk says her husband may sustain her, her husband may nullify it, and her husband's power to nullify his wife's vow is it's an intrinsic component of being married. Therefore, the divorce is not a complete krisos because he doesn't have that power. But Mar asks another shayla. If he says you are from the tenes l'chol except for partaking of truma, if she marries a kain, should not be able to partake of truma. So do I say the fact is, when it came to marrying, he didn't leave anything from her, so she can fully get married. Or the Torah says the purchase of his money by the king, indicating that a kain's wife partakes of truma because she is a kinyan kasper, and that if she is usher from partaking of truma, then his acquisition for her is not complete. I'm going to ask another shayla. Chutz miyuder shosich mayu. He says you mataras l'chol except for your inheritance. In other words, her future husband will not be considered her husband with regard to the halachas of Yerusha. What's the halacha? Do I say with regards to her ability to enter marriage, he did not leave out anything from the here? Or perhaps, since it's derived that a husband inherits from his wife, who is considered kin to her, which was said, and he shall possess it, that if the husband does not become his wife's yarshin, is the marriage not complete? Or, another question, says you're mutter to everybody except for your ability to enter Kiddushin by receiving a document. If another man is Mukudesh her by giving her document of Kiddushin, the condition will not take effect. So the question is, now, me and Esher the Makadosh the because of Via, could be Makadosh the because of Via. I don't know. That's why it's and we becomes compared to each other. So the ability to perform one of them renders the Gittin not a Gittin. So where it answers all the question, take goods to take them. Rabbi Yoda, maybe this is Vidain. There's also another sense. These says that there's also another essential part of the get. Vidain, the Yehevel, the Chiminai, Sefer Teruchim, the Get Shibukin, the Get Piturin. And this you shall have from me as a scroll of divorce, and a letter of leave, and a bill of dismissal to go marry any man you wish. Gufa shall get shikhr, and the basic element of a get shikhr, and the basic element of a get shikhr is you are hereby free one, and you're hereby your own. So I think about it. Pshita, it's obvious. If a person says to his wife, you are hereby a free woman, it's there nothing. It's not a get. If he says to the shifcha, now the question is, if he says to a woman, we're hereby your own. So what's the halacha? Is he saying to her that you are entirely your own, meaning that she has full control over her status and marry another man? Or does he mean in regards to work? That in other words, she can keep the revenue from her work. If so, the statement is not a statement of divorce. So I'm going to Rashi, Tashma, come in to learn a conclusion in the Mishnah. The Fan Gufa should get Shikar out the says the basic element of a geshikar, you're hereby free or you're hereby your own. Well, ma avdo, the konele gufo. She says like this. In regard to a slave whose body is acquired by the master, if the master states, if tashikar of the slave, you're hereby your own, the slave acquires his body. So the more so with regard to a wife whose body is not acquired to her husband, is it not clear that by his writing in a get, you are hereby your own, she's completely released from the marriage? So when it says to Ravashi, if a person says and they get shikhr, their slave, and the asik bach mao, if I have no business with you, what's the halacha? Is it a vow statement or not? Amrle Rav Chanan Ravashi. As the Ravashi Rav Chanan Ravashi Tashman Tanya Mechavdeli gay. Person who sells a slave to a gay, he goes to the chedus. So the slave goes free. But so to get shikhr nevertheless, he needs to get shikhr from the first master. This is when he did not write the document for the slave. It's when the master did not write the document for the slave when he sold him. But if he wrote his document for him, that is a shikhr the shikhr. Frankly, one of my eine, what does it mean? What does the word eine mean? His document. What's it referring to? Rashish is the Kosovlei. It writes from as follows: the Kishitiu Mimenu, when you escape from me, from the Goyim to whom I sold you, and a supply, I have no business with you. In other words, as soon as he escapes his Goyish master in any matter, is entirely free. So we can learn from here that the statement, I have no business with you, is a valid with regards to shikhr. This says in addition to the statement, you are hereby permitted to any man, there's another essential sentence in the get, and this is that you have for me a scroll of divorce and a letter of leave. So with regards to what principles are read in the Chacham disagree. The Chacham hold that ambiguous intimations are valid, and incomplete statement is sufficient as long as the intention is clear from the context. Now, and therefore, even if you did not write to explicitly, and this that you shall have from me is a scroll of Gittin and a letter of leave, nevertheless, it's evident that he's divorcing her with the get. Now, Rabbi Yoda says, when you have an ambiguous statement, It's not good. It's not the time of the cause of the Vidain. And therefore the reason why the get is a valid get is because he wrote to her, and this. The Muchamil, the Gittin Daf, it's evident that he's divorcing her with a get. But if it's not right here, Vidain, Amri with the word Garsha, people will say that he's divorcing her orally. And the document is merely an evidence of the divorce rather than the divorce itself. So people will mistakenly assume that the husband's statement to her when her husband's, and he hands her the get, is what causes the divorce to take effect. Amr Rabbi Abaya says, "Hi man, the cause of Gita." Abaya says, the person who writes a get, you should not write the word and this. Why? Because what is written Vav Dalid Yud Nun, and that can be misread as having the vowel of a chidik under the letter Dalid, not Seri. Mashma Vidin, and it could be mashma that this is the law that we should get divorced. Ella Vidain, rather you should write Vidain without a Yud, so that it's clear it should be written with it. That it should be read with it Seri. Now, Ladichtav Igeris, should not write the word Igeris from Mashma Igeris Igora, because it can be confused with the spelled a word that indicates a roof. Ela Igeris without a Yud. Ladichtav Lemahach, you should not write the word to go, the Mashma Lemahach, as it could read from me. Ladichtav Lemachach, it should not be written Lemachach, the Mashma Kichucha. You must be careful that the letter Hey now look like a ches, because then it looks like a chufa, looks like a joke, like the word chufa is a joke. Why it continues in the when it say that you shall be permitted to any marry that you wish. So the yisyabin, the yisyabsin plus yud. These words should have 3 yuds in them. The mashma to heaven with the yisyabsin. They shall be. To have him with his speech. She extend the vav striken and the vav striken, as otherwise the vav may be taken with yud, and those words spelled with a yud indicates divorce and left. In other words, it will change the meaning from describing the document as one that divorces or sends away, to describing the woman as divorced and sent away. Now, and now I have dismissed, and it says ousted and divorcee, you should extend the vav of kadu. Otherwise, the vav may be mistaken for yud and spelled with a yud, the mashma ukidi, which just means ukidi. Dichtel is nafsvei, and you should not write this nafsvei, the aleph, and a yud. The mashma lay yinas nasva. Mashma will not get married. Elo li snavi. Rather, you should write the snavi, which is a hey, and without a yud, so there'll be no room for any error. They asked the Shaila, but Vidain or Vidain? Do we need to write and this shall have from me or not? Ashma, this is coming here. The Asked Rabbi Begita Rabbi instituted for following words in the get. Eich plani bar planio, tar v'tarich los planisa in tisei, to have it insei min koban the dana v'yeme denan ula odom. We saw how so-and-so dismissed and divorced so-and-so, his wife, who was his wife from beforehand, from this day and forever. Now, the Dane, like Kamar, and the word Dane, or he didn't put. So our says, according to you, Kula mi Kamar, the Rabbi state all the other necessary clauses in the get. Alabinan, rather you do need it. Hanami binan, therefore you need it. The Gemara says, Miyem Denan, from this day, which is exclusive, is the date with written document proves when it takes effect, and therefore it's not necessary to write these expressions. Ul alam, and forever. Apukim with the Binan Rava Nachman. The exclusion this that Rava asked from Nachman. The Omar, he said to his wife, handing her the get, today we're not my wife, and tomorrow you're my wife. Does this limitation take effect? Although the conclusion of the Shiloh was that once the wife is divorced, she's divorced forever, Rabbi made takana, that the addition of this expression, the text of the get, to remove a suffix with regard to such a case. Okay, let's finish up to the Mishnah. Gufish shall get shifra. The basic element of the Geshich Ariat B'tas Ariat Bat Mencher Ariat B'Blas Micho. You are hereby free, and you are hereby on your own. Ask the Yud B'Shtaz Vin Davdi. Yud insisted in the following formulation and document of a slave sale for slaves. Avda the non mutstak la avdi. Uptir v'atim min charuchim min aludi min arudim alko makos reshum de inish lo is aloihi menuke v'kolmum min shchin derafik ad tatsar chadat v'atik. The slave is justified, fit for slavery, and he is dismissed and removed from being under you and from accusations and from contacts of the king and queen, meaning that he was not sentenced to death by the government. There's not a sign of ownership of another person on him. And he is cleaned of any blemish and the boils that emerged from him for 4 years, whether new or old. So I asked Master, what is the cure for boils? Amarbaya, Idbero Marticho, the Kavrisa, the Chola, the Chamra, Mishcha, the Zesa, the Nakbi, Chivara, the Shofrali, the Gathka, the Abesa. One takes ginger, a slag of silver, sulfur, wine and vinegar, and olive oils, and a white naphtha, and spreads it with goose feather.